We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Got some great news. Old Soul is back. She wasn't with us last week because she was out uh, marauding around the country doing whatever kind of activism she was doing at the time. And Old Soul, welcome back, and we're glad to see you. Sight for sore eyes. But maybe you can bring us up to date as to what you've been up to because I know there's been a lot of shit going on.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm a little rough because I haven't slept that much, but I'm gonna sleep today. Um, when I came back from Pennsylvania, I actually flew into Arizona so that we could drive back and come to Kamala Harris. She had another rally out here. Um, and it was awesome. Our Raiders football team was there, the union was there. It was nice to see some of like the people from our field offices was there. It did. It was a pretty good rally. We had fun. The wild child actually came down with like a couple of her friends because Graham wasn't feeling good. So, so she wouldn't have to drive back home by herself. That was like the longest 5 hours of my life when they left because I was like, oh my God, they're going around Hoover Dam. Like I kept having these weird scenarios in my head, but she made it back safely and that's good.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
and an
good.
update on her.
Yeah.
I decided like, we need to start like knocking out some of these college credits, even though she's going into the military. So the classes that I got her is media literacy. Um, and there's two other ones that she took. I'm trying to think of the name of it off the tip of my tongue. I can't. Oh, economics, and then there's one other that she took. And they just did. She's writing a paper on Thomas Paine's Common Sense. They kind of like dissected that, and yeah, she's doing good.
She's come a long way from where she started when you first met, and that's can be attributed to you and your influence. And uh, sounds like the kid's got a
Kinda.
good shot.
She got detention. But it was primarily the teacher was like, hey, you need to do after school detention or whatever. And she was like, yeah, I have better things to do than to do detention. So that kind of prolonged it. But I was able to talk to the teacher and let her know what her schedule was. So she's going to be doing lunch detention for like 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, she got to get her lunch, go to that classroom and sit and, you know, that kind
Okay.
of stuff.
Do you have any new clients coming through the homestead now?
Yeah, I have one that's coming. But it's nothing tragic. Oh, okay. So you remember like last time I couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that abusers are able to get visitation rights.
Right.
So I was just asking the women or that do what I do that experience that, like, what the heck is going on? The girl that came here, she is in high school, but the guy she was going out with was in college. And they were like fooling around. She said no, and he just did it anyway.
Right.
And because her parents they don't talk to her about that, she didn't even know she had been assaulted. So then she told them what happened. They were going to keep the baby, but his parents were saying, well, yeah, our son, he raped your daughter and, he shouldn't have done that, but that's our grandchild. And that was I'm laughing to
Wow.
keep from being upset about it, but that was
Yeah.
her situation. Other situations is with these churches. If the older men take advantage of the young girls, then they will have like these child brides. I guess that's the only way you could explain it,
Right.
to where the parents will sign off on them marrying the older men. And so that's some of the stuff that they were seeing in their places. Like my voice is shaky because that's just crazy to think about that. But that was the scenario of why you do see people pushing for rights after they assault a girl.
It's truly amazing. People can be despicable, and it's not enough to just be ashamed of it that they have to perpetuate it by doing this bullshit. It's frustrating, and hopefully we can get some changes to it once we get this election over. Um,
Yeah, Republicans are seeing that it's a losing issue. And
yeah,
I don't think that they've changed their stance on it. I think they're trying to change their messaging so that when they can get into office, they can do what they want to do. I think that's basically what they're trying to do. So you can't, you cannot trust these people at all.
tell us what you were doing in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is obviously a pivotal state in this upcoming election. You spent a fair amount of time out there, presumably canvassing and some other stuff. Tell us what happened.
canvassing, phone banking, writing the postcards, door knocking, going to meetings. Oh, and I heard you talking about Mark Cuban. And the reason that he was there and the reason that we were there is he was making a pitch to the business community and
Hmm.
also like people building their small businesses up that Kamala Harris is good for your business and for your bottom line, and Trump is not. And it's so crazy because you say this all the time, and it takes a billionaire to like tell them this basic concept that if you put Trump in office and he has these tariffs on everything, so all of a sudden your washer goes up from $800 to $1,200, everything is more expensive. These people are going to try to survive. They're going to try to take care of their children. They're going to have to pay their bills. They don't have time to buy your products. They don't have extra money to spend on a purse or some shoes or to buy that furniture. It was like a guy that owned like this furniture chain, and he
Right.
was telling them if somebody has to like pay their rent, feed their children, do you think they're going to say, "Oh yeah, I need a new living room set"? That's not going to happen. So he was making that pitch to them that if you want to continue to make a profit, the last thing that you would want to do is vote for Trump. And then at the event, it was just like this little part off to the side. He would just go over there, and it'll be like, okay, he's talking to Fox News, and then he'd leave, and he'd come back, and then he'd go back over to that little side, and it's like, okay, he's talking to MSNBC. Like he was making those rounds and trying to make a pitch to the business community that Donald Trump is bad for business. And
Yeah.
before we actually, and it was like an event, like there was like catering and food and everything. And so we were in the back and he was just telling us that, you know, the talking points that we should have, like tell the truth about your own lives and how this would affect you. But at the same time, we have like talking points. And so one of my talking points, and he actually like, I gotta use that. I'm gonna take your talking point. And I was telling him, Trump has filed bankruptcy 6 times. Don't let America be his seventh bankruptcy. So that was
Right.
kind of like my talking point and my pitch. And he actually took it and said it on television.
Mark,
So
that's
that was pretty cool.
copywritten. We're going to be sending you a lawsuit.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and there was a guy who wrote you an email that was asking about the Haitians and another community that Trump was attacking.
Hmm.
And the community was a small town, I think maybe 4,000 people called Charleroi, if I'm saying that
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And Trump started to attack them. MAGA started to attack them. I wouldn't be too worried about it though, because what happened was when they started doing that, um, the Haitians in Florida started like marching. And people's like, what that got to do with anything? Well, you got to remember that Biden lost to Trump in Florida by like 371,000 votes. There's like between 500 and 600,000 Haitians in Florida.
Right.
So if just the Haitians came out and voted for Harris, that's it. It's gonna flip because Trump isn't really getting any new voters. And so
No.
once those Haitians started like protesting and marching, like, okay, you pulled this stunt in Ohio, and you think you're supposed to go to Pennsylvania and pick on an even smaller population of Haitians, that's not gonna happen. So once the Haitians started marching in Florida, then all of a sudden they just kind of left that little town alone. And now they've gone back to their regular talking points. And the regular talking points is just immigrants in general, or they're coming from the Congo, or they're coming from the border, just the regular stuff that they say, but they're not targeting one particular group. They learned that lesson when those Haitians in Florida was like, okay, yeah, y'all really trying to lose Florida. So that's what made that rhetoric change. I was going to write an email, but I got too busy. So I just wanted to respond to that email.
I just wanted to say something about the economy, what you were talking about with the tariffs and all that stuff. And that's absolutely true. It just adds to the price of the
Yeah,
product, which means we pay for it. But I think we need to take, and this is something I've been saying for a long time. I'm not an economist. I'm not even smart, but common sense would tell you this makes sense. Overall, when we're talking about the economy, we have the millennials and the Gen Zs coming in.
yeah,
Uh, we heard Tim Walz talk about the housing issue. We've got a big disparity of what things cost and what people get paid and how expensive it is to be housed. Uh,
yeah,
Now, when you tell boomers this, they will say, well, we had to tough it out too, so you're going to have to tough it out. And I always say, well, wait a minute. When it comes to saddling them with student loans, paying them shitty wages, making houses impossible to get, you're thinking boomers are going to be in control for a long time, but that's not the case. We're going to have millennials and Gen Zs taking over after 2024 up through 2028. And if nobody can afford to buy a house, if nobody can qualify to buy a house, if nobody can buy a new car, if nobody can buy expensive clothes or even moderately expensive clothes, our economy is going to go to shit. We are
Yeah,
at, we are at an important point in time, a desperate point in time. We need to cultivate and help the middle class. And the way we're going to do that now is by helping the millennials and the Gen Zs because they are going to control the middle class. And this is what I don't understand why these big shot Republican money people can't see. It's like when you log in the North Woods of Minnesota. You can cut down trees all day, every day and sell the wood, but you better be
yeah.
planting some new trees. So
Mm-hmm.
down the road, you'll have it won't go away, it won't be extinct. And that's what everybody's missing here. It's not about, helping out the millennials and the Gen Zs. It's about cultivating the people who are going to keep us alive 20 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't, um, for the sake of, I think it's just like what Mark Cuban said is like you have to take your greed glasses off and just
Yeah,
kind of like see the world for what it is. Because if he's not going to shy away from saying, yeah, Kamala Harris is going to raise your taxes, period. She said that it's going to go up like, 15% or whatever, but you're still making profit. You're just not able to make as much of a profit as it is when you're able to price gouge and all of that other kind of stuff.
right,
Another problem that they had that I didn't think about, and I like the way that he explains it to them, is a lot of these businesses have a problem with regulations. They want to deregulate everything.
right,
And he did tell them, well, common sense will tell you that when you deregulate everything, then that opens you up to lawsuits. You're paying out workman comp claim, that type of thing, and you're going to lose in court. Because if you go through the Bush years and you had so many workplace injuries or workplace accidents, and then Obama comes in and he puts regulations on that. And so you go from maybe like 20 workplace injuries a year to maybe one. And then, like, let's say Trump comes in and he takes those regulations off and you go right back up to 20, then there's a pattern that when you don't have regulations, you're not being responsible. And so you're
right.
going to lose those court cases. You're going to be paying out extra because you deregulated. So are you really saving any money there? It's just the way that he was putting it to these people. And it's such common sense for you to think, but they are so greedy that they don't think about their workers or their employees like at all. They just look at their bottom line and that's it. That's all they care about. But they don't think about their actions will subtract from that bottom line. And then at the end of the day, Trump is not good for the economy. It's just not.
Deregulation is fine if you can trust the people that are being deregulated to do the right
Okay.
thing. And clearly, they're not doing the right thing. They get greedy and they take full advantage of any situation they have. That's why we
Mhm.
have regulations. We have regulations so people don't dump toxic waste in rivers where people are
Yeah.
getting water from. There's a reason to have regulations. Now, if everybody were good people, did the right thing, that would be fine. But we know that wealthy people, corporations, don't do the right thing. They do the most expeditious thing for them, the thing that's more profitable. And in order to protect society, we need the regulations. Republicans can talk all about, well, we don't want any regulations. We want a free market. Well, that's unfortunate because these people don't allow a free market to exist. They just do
Right.
what they want to do and leave us holding the bag. And to suggest that no regulations is a good thing is absolutely stupid.
Yeah, we saw that with the train derailment, the
Yeah.
regulations that Obama had on there, where you had to, like the brakes, the padding or whatever, it was like, you had to keep up with that type of stuff. I don't know what the regulation was, but with Trump removing that regulation, that's what led to the derailment in the first place.
Right.
And it's just kind of like that right there proves that they are not going to do anything that they have to pay for. You have to pay for brakes, you have to pay for paddings. Of course, you have a train loading cargo. You have to make sure that the brakes and the paddings work properly, and you have to change it more than, I would have to change my pads on my car. But they don't see it like that. It has to be an accident like that to happen for people to get upset, for them to say, "Oh yeah, regulations." There's something else that Trump was doing with the crypto and the Bitcoin, where Mark Cuban, he knows that what Trump is going to try to do when he gets in that second term is take away the American dollar and put it in Bitcoin and crypto.
Right.
And his sons and all of these people that he know are going to be the ones profiting from it. And it's going to undervalue the American dollar. And then he said, when you think about it, it's just imaginary money. There's nothing there. So
Right.
they can pretend like it's money there, but there is no money there. So he can see ahead that that's what Trump is trying to do. And that's like one of the scariest things ever is Trump paying bills with a credit card with no limit, but there's no money on the card at all. And he's
Right.
not going to pay that back. It's just a huge grift and a huge con that he is trying to do. And it wouldn't even be like a depression or recession. It'll be like a depression. He wasn't trying to scare these people. He was just trying to tell them the truth of what it really is.
Well, everything with Republicans, everything with Donald Trump is smoke and mirrors. None of it
Yeah,
is true.
yeah.
Most of it is bullshit. They're just trying to get you to believe it. And crypto, I know there's people out there that like crypto and all that stuff. Never understood it. I don't trust it. I'm not investing in crypto just
I
because I
didn't
don't
know
know
it
enough about it.
wasn't. I didn't know that it was. It's not regulated.
No,
It's kind of like with the way I was like hearing it and people was explaining it to me. It's kind of like the wild wild west out there.
exactly.
There's no regulations. People are just doing whatever it is that they want. Some of them get caught, most of them don't. I started hearing about all of these celebrities like Jake Paul, even like Kim Kardashian. All of these people were like selling this Bitcoin, but there's like nothing there.
Right.
You can go to your bank and you can read your bank statement, see how much money you got in there. You can count your money out by hand like Scrooge McDuck or something. But when it comes to Bitcoin and all that stuff, like it really is nothing there. You have to trust people. And we don't have the infrastructure for that right now. And you don't want that to replace the American dollar or USD. And I do think that that's what Trump is trying to do. I hadn't even thought about that until I was around people that's a lot smarter than me trying to soak all this stuff up.
Well, we've got so many things fucked up in this country that we have to get rectified, and we have to wait till after the election to do it. I think we should focus on fixing the main things before we even think about changing the monetary system.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
crazy idea anyway. One of the things we need to talk about, and prior when we talked yesterday or to this morning to coming on, I was thinking, okay, the big story we're going to talk about is the debate. That's the big thing that happened. Everybody's bouncing around about the debate, but turns out it's not the big thing. We'll get to the real big thing, but we do need to talk about the debate because I think it was there was a lot to this debate, and some people think it's controversial. Did JD win? Did Tim Walz win? There's no question Tim Walz won because JD Vance lied over and over again. I'm not for a national abortion ban, in spite of the fact there's video of him fucking saying it. He just lied over and over again. He did what Republicans did. I think the telling point was when Tim Walz asked him, did Donald Trump lose in 2020? And he would not answer it. And the only reason he would not answer it because he's fearful that he might upset Donald Trump. This is not a man who can think for himself, and nobody in the Republican Party can. It's all about Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is a failure and a fool and an idiot. So this is who we have to deal with. But I'm sure you watched the debate. What was your perception of the whole thing?
I tried to take it from the mind of someone who doesn't follow politics like that, someone who isn't really that informed and what their takeaway would be. And if I was that type of person, to me, it would be pretty much like a wash. It's not changing anybody's mind one way or the other. A lot of people were upset that we saw America's Dad when Tim Walz was there instead of seeing like Coach, Walz there. But they have to understand that the campaign has worked so hard to get Republican voters and kind of like those independents that lean right. And so he couldn't come out and be that way because that would give them that radical left. They're going to get in there and put all these radical leftist, socialist, Marxist policies in there. He did have to show his softer side for those Republicans voting for Trump. I'm sorry, for Harris, those evangelicals voting for Harris. He had to make sure that those people felt comfortable and in a safe space with Democrats to keep their vote. So that's
Right.
why he wasn't coming out and attacking like that. And that was one thing that frustrated me. Everybody wanted him to be just like this attack dog, but you have to kind of toe the line when you have those type of people who are already weary and fearful coming over to vote for Harris in the first place. You have to, I don't want to say appease them, but kind of make everybody feel comfortable. And I think that's what he was trying to do.
Regardless of how it went, a debate between vice presidential candidates rarely has any impact on the
Mm-hmm.
election. So I think the value of it was limited as it was. But as I was watching Tim Walz talking to JD Vance, I wanted him to attack and just go after them, after JD Vance a little bit. But I can relate to what Tim was going through
Yeah,
because I had the same situation when I had HVAC Jeff on the show, the Trumplefuck,
yeah,
I'm ready to go into attack mode. Uh, and I would have no problem ripping them apart. I will always do that. But when HVAC Jeff came on, he was very respectful. He was quiet and he didn't engage with me, which surprised me with the Trumplefuck. That's what got me to think you're not really a Trumplefuck. You're just looking for attention. And now, of course, he's talking about Democrats and he's a rational debater now, so he's a phony. But it's off. It gets you off center when you're ready for a fight, and then the guy won't fight. The problem you have with somebody who won't fight is if you fight them and go after them, now you appear to be the bully. And so
yeah.
you got to kind of balance the energy. You got to be tough,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't be the aggressor in the sense where you look like you're bullying somebody. So I can appreciate where Tim Walz was in that debate because I don't think anybody was expecting that from JD Vance. And that can be attributed to the fact that he's Ivy League educated and he's been a debater before. It doesn't allow for the fact that he got to lie every time he opened up his mouth. And I think most people understood that he was lying.
Yeah. The thing with JD Vance and Donald Trump, I don't know how to say it. Like they both rats, they just come from different gutters. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like Trump with his lies. It's very over the top, bombastic, in your face. It's like crap. And he's all over the place. There's no cohesion to his lies versus someone like JD who can dress those lies up. However, he's the type of person that you have to listen to what he is saying. And people did get that from him. They were giving like used car salesman. Oh, he's so slick. He's so slippery. And
Yeah.
they don't understand that that's a turnoff for people when they can tell
Oh,
that you're
yeah.
not your authentic self. And so I do think people read that from him. But the things that he was saying it was like unhinged. He was saying that Trump saved Obamacare.
Yeah.
What? He
That's
said that
correct.
there was a peaceful transfer of power. What? You know what I mean? It's like, and then the fact that he had to say, up, 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 you're fact checking me. You're not supposed to fact check me. That gave it away.
That was
And
embarrassing. That was
the most,
embarrassing for him to say that and to get
the
upset
most,
about it.
yeah, the most disappointing thing about this is journalism is for a reason. It's for us, the people, to protect us. We're supposed to go out and vote based off of the facts, information that we can rely on, and what we think is better for our futures as a whole. How you expect for us to make an informed decision when we're just being spoon fed lies, like constant lies? I think that 60 Minutes handled Trump perfectly. I think the when he did the Black Journalists Convention, Trump, they handled him perfectly. We are going to fact check you. And if you don't want to be fact checked, we will tell the people, hey, we extended an olive branch, one condition that you cannot lie and you will be fact checked. And he said no. And then let the people decide from there. But don't allow him to just sit there and lie and then be like, well, we just had to give everybody a chance. No, you can say he does not want to give an interview where he has to be honest. And then we can see it for ourselves that that's what he's all about. I just don't appreciate the fact that they are allowed to say, well, if I can't lie, I'm not going to participate. Because I'm the
Exactly.
type of person that'll be like, all right, cool, then you don't have to.
If you're going to
Kamala
lie,
being
what's the
principal,
point?
good.
There's no
Yeah,
point in listening.
yeah, she's going to be here. That's okay. We're going to put out our little statement and we're going to keep it pushing. But you don't allow the lies. I just feel so like let down by the people that we are supposed to trust, you know? So,
Well, you brought up the 60-minute thing, and I did a TikTok where I was talking about how um, both candidates, the vice president and President Trump and JD Vance, prove that truth has no place in the Republican Party, or
oh,
especially in
yeah,
their campaign. Like you said, they had the audacity to push back against some egregious bullshit that he said, and he gets upset and he whines and cries. It's not fair. You're not supposed to fact check us. I mean, if you got somebody in a debate, you would think the bare minimum you could expect, or yeah, expect out of them is the fucking truth. If we can't expect the truth, then the whole point of a debate is there's no point to it. It's just
yeah,
there's no point in doing it. And then you brought up 60 Minutes, and this is where Donald Trump showed his true colors. This is an interview that's been going on for 50 years. Both candidates show up on 60 Minutes and they are asked questions. But then Donald Trump finds out, oh, they're going to fact check him, and he backs out immediately. Once again, Donald Trump is a pussy ass bitch. He doesn't want to debate Kamala a second time. He doesn't want to show up to 60 Minutes because he's going to get fact checked. If
yeah,
you're telling the truth, why do you care if you're getting fact checked? It's absolutely ridiculous. So now he's not going to do the 60 Minutes thing. And like you said, I presume Kamala will go. And if it's an hour thing, she's going to get the full hour. And then
yeah.
Donald Trump will lose his shit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people don't realize that we teach people how to treat us by the level of BS that we will tolerate from them.
Right.
And the Republican Party as a whole has been treated to the fact that they don't have to tell the truth, that they can live in their own bubble and reality, and that's okay because we've allowed them to do that. And by we, I mean like the media, pretty much. Because I heard an interview with Lauren Boebert, and the guy was like asking her just basic questions. She came out with her little lie, and he said, "Oh, well, actually, was just talking about the crime rate or whatever." And he pointed out the facts to her, and she immediately, wait, is this an interview or is this an interrogation? For them,
Same thing.
for them, an interview is, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to lie to your face, to the American people, say whatever I want to say. And the moment you ask a question, the moment you fact check me, the moment you push back on me, that's the moment that this interview is going to end. And it's so frustrating that journalists are saying, oh, well, we don't want you to leave. This journalist was like, all right, if you want to leave, leave. And I think that's how everybody should be because we are training them. It's acceptable to lie to us. So it's not just Trump, it's not just JD, it's all of them. Even if you look in the hearings,
Yeah.
they make up stuff. Like Byron Donalds got caught fabricating evidence, like
Right.
completely fabricating it, called out to his face that he did that. And the only thing he could do is just sit back in his chair, and there's no accountability for that. So the media has trained them that it's okay to lie. And if you threaten to walk away, we're going to give in to that. And that was clear on the debate stage last night, but that's clear across the board. And so it's up to like people like you, other people with these huge platforms to get the truth out there. Because we are on our own when it comes to the media and the DOJ. Like we are on our own, which is
In
sad
this
thing to say.
in this country, we're supposed to have checks and balances. And
Yeah.
what I think a lot of people don't understand is journalism in the media is one of those checks and balances. But if
Mhm.
they're willing to broadcast lies and whatever, then that check and balance isn't there anymore. I think what we have here is the media has basically raised a spoiled, lying piece of shit child.
Yeah.
And now that child has grown up and we can't understand why they behave the way they do. It's much like Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the worst child in the history of this country.
Yeah.
Why is he like that right now? Why does he do the things he does? Because he's always been able to do that from the
Yeah.
time he was born, when he was a kid, when he was in college, when he was working for his dad and then working on his own. He's been allowed to get away with this stuff over and over again. And to expect to for him to act decently is fucking ridiculous. And unfortunately, the media in this country, because they're more concerned with the amount of viewership they have than what's true, they've allowed these people to get away with it. That's why I question the future of mainstream media. They're fucking ruining themselves.
Yeah.
They're not a legitimate or credible source anymore.
Yeah, that's one thing that I have to point out about Tim Walz last night is, everybody talks about like sane washing when you treat Donald Trump and JD like they're regular candidates, like they're normal, and that this is just some normal conversation when it's not. It kept irritating me that he kept saying, "Hey, yeah, that's a good point. I could agree with you on that. This, and this." So it gives him relevance, like, "Hey, we can make common ground here," when we cannot because he is so radical. That was like the one thing that kept irking me is because he really, oh yeah, I can agree with you on that. We need to have this type of conversation. It's not a conversation. It's a man standing next to you telling blatant lies that's going to hurt this country and hurt the viewers that's watching that does not know better. I was not happy with him about that because it's like, okay, the media is saying washing him, and now Tim is up here saying washing him too and giving him relevancy when he does not deserve that. He
I
did
think
not deserve that at all.
I think you can be tough with somebody in that situation without attacking them and still feel good about yourself. Like for example, when they said, "Well, I think we can agree with this," they both said that. If JD Vance said to me, "I think we can agree," or "I agree," I'd say, "No, motherfucker, you don't agree with me. We're on opposite
Exactly.
ends of the spectrum. I'm sorry,
Hmm.
I don't see it. The way you think is not even anywhere near the way I think," and that's what should have been said. I think what they should have done too, without making it an attack, do what Kamala Harris did: stick them and then tell your story. Like, for
Yeah.
example, these guys claim not to be connected to Project 2025, yet most of Donald Trump's staff is working on Project 2025. His name shows up 300 times in Project 2025, and JD Vance was hired to write the
And forward.
foreword to the book that's coming out about Project 2025. Please
Yeah.
explain how you're not connected to Project 2025. That needed to be put out there flat in front of his face. Now, he
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have answered to it, but at least that sound was out there and people got to hear it. And I think that opportunity was missed. I'm not mad at Tim Walz. I think he did a fine job. He did enough to beat him. I think the whole debate really isn't a factor coming up with the election, so I have no problem with it. But there was opportunities to put JD Vance in his place that weren't taken, and I don't know if
Yeah.
that was Tim Walz just not being experienced enough to do this, or he was told to do this by the campaign.
Yeah, one thing that my daughter learned when she was debating, and it's so crazy because she taught the wild child this, and I had to tell Grammy, like, do not let her do that to you anymore because I know what she's doing. And she does like it's crazy for her to be this cool with the psychiatrist, I'm telling you. Because one of the things my daughter taught her was you can agree while being disagreeable. So what he could have said was like, "Oh, hey, I'm glad that you you agree with me on the fact that we should not have a national abortion ban because just a couple of days ago you said this, and
Right.
this." So you're saying, yeah, yeah, we agree on it now, but that's not what you said before. So it's agreeing with or making it seem like you agree with that person, but at the same time pointing out their lies and their hypocrisy. And I think that that's all he had to say, especially when it came to the Project 2025. Like, well, I'm so glad that you don't like Project 2025. We can agree on that now, even though you did write the forward to it, even though you were at the Heritage Foundation, like, even though you did all of these things, today you're on this stage and you're saying you disavow it, we can agree on that. And then you keep it pushing. And that is something that he didn't do. And I was surprised that he didn't do it because I know his debate prep was with Mayor Pete. And I was just kind of like, ugh, yeah, he should have done that. And I
Yeah.
think that Pete being such a good debater, I'm surprised he didn't teach him how to do that.
Well, and the thing about it is I think some people maybe said, well, we know how the first one went. Maybe it would be nice if we try to keep it cordial and just talk about the facts.
But
Well, that
America
would,
loved the first one.
well, they did love the first one, and that's well and good under normal circumstances. But we're fighting off an infection here. Now's
True.
not the time to go easy at that infection. We have to fight the fight until the infection is down, and then we can worry about trying to make things a little more cordial. We're going to an election in just over a month. This is
Yeah.
not the time to sit back on your laurels. This is the exact problem we've talked about with the Democrats. I'm going to take the high road. When they go low, we go high. This is no time to be fucking doing that. We need to kick them down, kick their teeth in, and make sure they stay down. I'm sorry if that
No,
sounds too aggressive, but that's the way you deal with the situation.
I mean, I'm with you. There is no taking the high road all the time. You take the low road, I'm going to take the route to hell. How about that? You don't get no lower than what I'm supposed to go. Especially, like, there's certain instances where that is appropriate, where you can just walk away from certain circumstances. It's not worth your time. Like, sitting there arguing back and forth with somebody in the comment section. Why? That makes sense to take the high road and not waste your time on this type of person. But when you are standing here and you are literally a bridge between autocracy and fascism and democracy and protecting women, protecting young girls, protecting basic human rights, that is not the time to take the high road. That is the time to fight for people, and you have a purpose for your fight. So let that purpose kind of like drive you. And I know for a fact that inside the campaign, there's just this line that is being told for the simple fact that we have like Republicans and evangelicals and these type of people that's coming over. And I'm glad that they are, but my problem with that is their influence.
Right.
It seemed like we were doing just fine with the messaging until they started coming in and they have their voices and their say, and it's kind of like, okay, we have to toe this line now because we have a larger tent. So, that's a little difficult to deal with. And I hope that it changes after November 5th. That's like, okay, yeah, thanks for your vote. We appreciate you guys, but we got stuff to do.
Well, for I'm not a big on following rules. If I think I need to do something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I would have to psych myself up for this argument if the guy's being nice to me. Now, you wouldn't want to engage and look like the bully. However, if I was sitting across from JD Vance or Donald Trump, they could be as nice as pie. All I have to do is remember in my mind they tried to overthrow this country. They try to
Yeah.
take rights away from women. They are putting women in danger. They're putting American people in danger. So now I'm pissed. And at that point, I'm going to put my foot so far up their ass, I have to buy a new pair of shoes. And honestly, I got to get myself in the right mindset. You can't agree with these people because they are the polar opposite of anything Tim
Right.
Walz or me or anybody else would say. It's you can't give them an inch to
Yeah.
make what that does is it gives them credibility. Well, maybe
Hmm.
they're okay. Maybe they're all right. I heard people even say that. No, they're not. They're
You
fucking evil.
you know who that applies to more than anybody that's on Team Harris right now is Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
People, so many people think that this heifer is, oh, they just love her, they're fawning over her, and all of this crap. That whole Democrats kill babies after they're born, she was actually touting that crap, voting with Trump like 97% of the
Yeah.
time on the child separation policies, on the Muslim ban, all of this crap, she rolled along with Trump on that. And now everybody think, oh yeah, she's Team Harris, so we're Team Cheney. That does not work like that. Her father is Satan himself. And they're like easing up on him because I guess he just seen some magical light. It does not work like that. And sitting back and watching these people come into our tent and we're kowtowing and tiptoeing around so that they will stay put for another 30 days. For me, it's not an easy thing to do. But I'm not an expert on this, so I'm pretty sure they have a reason for doing it. I just don't like it.
Well, what people have to understand about Liz Cheney in supporting Kamala Harris benefits her greatly. She
Absolutely.
she was essentially kicked out of the Republican Party. She was voted
Mhm.
out. She was basically excommunicated from the Republican Party.
She's
So
a
what
woman scorned.
yeah, she's a woman scorned, but she also understands that when Kamala beats Donald Trump in a landslide, it's going to burn the party down. The party that kicked her out is going to be gone. So there's going to
Yeah.
have to be somebody who resurrects some similarity to the Republican Party. And I said this when she got voted out. She's just going to stand back and say, "Okay, I'm just going to bide my time. I'm going to end up looking like the normal one, and they're going to need a leader. Who's their leader? It's going to be her. And trust me, as much as you like the fact that she stood up against Donald Trump, she is no friend to the Democratic Party. She never was the friend of the Democratic Party, and she's not going. You got to be ready to fight against this woman because she knew exactly what she's doing. Now people say, "Well, she helped us." Listen, you got a representative in the House of Representatives. She had some integrity. She stood by the truth. She pushed get back against an autocracy or a fascist. Isn't that the bare minimum we should expect out of a representative in the House of Representatives? She
I
didn't do anything
mean,
great. She just did her fucking job.
right. What's the governor's name of Georgia? I'm trying to think of his name. Is it Brian Kemp?
Yeah,
Him and Liz Cheney and a couple of other people. These people are MAGA with common sense, basically.
a
They
little.
understand what Trump is doing, and they're understanding that this is not good for them in the long run. So it's not like they're standing up for what's right. They are standing up for what's going to be best for them in the
Yeah,
future and moving forward. Because Brian
absolutely.
Kemp has absolutely no problem with his voter suppression laws, kicking people off the voting rolls, harassing people in poor and minority communities. No problem with that at all. But then he tries to like hold himself up in this favorable light by saying, oh, yeah, I was able to talk to Biden on the phone and we did this and we did that. And I wasn't going to cheat on the election for Trump. They understand that this is not long term, that this is not sustainable. And so what they do is they just basically jump off of the bus before it crashes, while everybody else is just sitting in the car, in the bus licking windows. They can see ahead of what's coming up, so they can still do their evil deeds, but still for some reason be like in the good graces of the Democrat Party, which is there's nothing good about either one of them for the
Yeah.
simple fact that they do the bare minimum, but behind the scenes they doing dirt the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that's just not the case. It's not the case. And people have to understand, those of you Democrats that say, "Oh, that Liz Cheney, I really like her because she stood up for us. She stood up against Donald Trump. We like her." If you like Liz Cheney, you're falling into the same trap as MAGA did with Donald Trump. "Oh, I
Yeah,
like what he says. I'm going to stick with him." You're doing the same thing with Liz Cheney and Kemp and whoever else. They aren't your friends. Take advantage of what they're going to give you, but don't think they aren't going to step on your neck if they get a chance, because they will.
yeah. Liz Cheney stood up for the fact that she likes to be a woman in a position of power in America, and under Trump's America, she's not going to be able to do that.
No,
So these people, they stand up for themselves and their longevity, even though they know, okay, yeah, we'll have to sacrifice for, this short little period, but we're going to get that tenfold just a couple years down the line. So these are the people who know how to strategize and play the long game versus Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, all of these clowns. They see them as buffoons. They see them as clowns. They see them as inarticulate and no intelligent at all. They see that and they know that and they separate themselves from that because they don't want that stench on them.
Right.
That's the only thing that they're doing is standing up for themselves long term, and it just looks good. You know what I mean? But once you take that veneer off, you can see who they really are and understand that they just playing people. I'm surprised as many Democrats have built for it as it has. That's baffling my brain on that,
Not
especially
all
Liz Cheney.
not all people that tell you they're good people are in fact good people. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the real big story that's happening now. I know you were jacked up about it. It's about the briefing that Jack Smith, the oversized briefing that Jack Smith filed, and now they unsealed it yesterday. So all shit is going wild out there. And I know you were pretty jacked up about when it happened. You sent me a link to the actual file, the 165 pages, which I have not read, but I bet you read more than I have. So we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We are happy to have Old Soul back after a 1 week respite. It was a respite for us because we didn't get to hear Old Soul. She's been out bouncing around all over the country doing all kinds of important shit. And of course, I've been sitting here talking to my computer. So I feel a little, I feel a little, I don't know. I feel a little boring and a little lazy, but I'm known for being lazy, so it's not a big deal. We talked about a lot of things with the debate and all this stuff, but of course, the big news, we'd heard about the superseding indictments by Jack Smith regarding the election interference case in D.C. He submitted it to Judge Chutkan. It was 185 pages. It was sent to her sealed. There was also a redacted copy of it too. And I know they were looking to get it unsealed and exposed to the general public. Now, I'd heard that there was supposed to be a response on October 10th from Donald Trump's team. And I presumed it would be unsealed some point after that, maybe mid-October. But as luck would have it, it was unsealed yesterday, and the
Yeah.
debate was the big news. Now everybody's forgotten about the debate, and the shitstorm has started. So, why don't you introduce us to all this for those folks that don't know? And I'd be surprised if you don't. But you're sending me links, and you're talking about this stuff, and you got a list of names who you think is this and that. So you know more about this than I do. So go for it.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you this and I'm going to link it back to the documents case. My daughter told me to tell you this. When it comes to somebody who is narcissistic, how you always talk about Trump, she says that you are spot on with that. However, clinically, there is a definition. Instead of saying, he's losing his, he is crazy, he's off his rocker, all that stuff that you say about him, right? It's actually called a narcissistic collapse. That's the clinical term
I've
for
heard
it.
that. Yeah.
An intense emotional reaction when they feel like their sense of self, they feel threatened in a certain type of way. He knows that he's losing control. So when you see this spiraling and this reaction, that's basically what it is. We're watching a narcissist collapse. And you know how you always say they fall hard, they fall fast?
Yeah.
That's pretty much how she explained it to me, but that was the clinical definition. But the reason I said that you were right about that is because you're also right about the Congress people with the superseding indictments that you're always talking about. So in that, a lot of people were saying, oh, person one, person two, person three. They were saying like all of these persons. Some of that is true, but for the most part, like those P, like 47, P 48, all of these people, those are political conspiracists. So that's why they have the P in front of it.
Okay.
On this freaking document, there is 77, I want to say, I could be wrong. But how do you have 77 political people who co-inspired on this with you?
Absolutely.
To me, that's mind blowing. Because it's just kind of like I had to pause and think to myself because I was sitting here trying to figure out who like these people were. And it's kind of like, okay, yeah, you're not going to be able to figure out who all 77 of the political people are. I'm assuming that they're in the House. I know for a fact that one of them is in the Senate because what's her name? One of the other people in the Senate was making arrangements for phone calls for Trump. And it specifically said a person in the Senate, not a person in the House. So I
Okay.
started thinking about the Senate, and it's like, how do you narrow it down? Because there's MAGA in there too. It could be Ted Cruz. It could be anybody that's in there.
Yeah.
But they were like all in on this, which
Yeah.
is, and I was sitting here and I was like, oh, it could be this person and that person and this person. But what made me pause is the fact that I have so many options on who it could be. So it'd be different if I had to like narrow it down to like five people. Who could the five co-conspirators be in Congress? But the fact that it's 77 of those people, I had to pause. That kind of took my breath. You was right about it. And I was expecting like, oh yeah, superseding indictments. You're always talking about it. But when you hear that number 77, or you read 77, it kind of took my breath away when I read that.
It,
What do you think
it,
about 77 superseding indictments? Possibly, but you know some of these people are working with Jackson.
it kind of makes you understand how there can be RICO charges in Georgia. RICO is about organized crime. And if you've got
Yeah.
77 co-conspirators in Washington, D.C., this is, for all intents and purposes, organized crime. I can think of some people in Congress that are likely prospects
Yeah.
for who's listed in this filing. Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan, we know he
Mm.
talked to Donald Trump before, during, and after the fucking insurrection. We know
Marjorie.
Marjorie Taylor Greene was involved. Loudermilk, who was giving the tours. Andy Biggs. There's a lot of people in there that could be involved in this. And what I suspect is, I'm thinking it more now. I said this before because this is what I heard. We've got these 77 people in here. This is about an indictment for Donald Trump. They want to focus on Donald Trump. But after the election, there may be a number of those 77 people that get indictments too. And they are likely to be sitting members of Congress, or maybe married to a Supreme Court justice, or maybe somebody in
Yeah.
the media, because, Sean Hannity was basically working for Donald Trump in the administration while he was on Fox News. This could be pretty widespread. And the things we're hearing about in this briefing are fucking crazy. Like, first of all, we know Pence comes up in this thing. Pence
Hmm.
told him in November, right after the election, there is no fraud in the election, no fraud at all, and that you're going to lose. And his lawyers told him you're going to lose every court case. So he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew what the situation was, and everything he did thereafter was premeditated.
You know, one thing that stuck out to me about reading this is everybody around Trump. I don't want to say they was tiptoeing because, they were telling him the truth. They were telling him what's up,
Yeah,
but they had to tell him in a gentle way. Do you know what I mean? Like they really had to be careful how they told him that he lost the election. Bill Barr, as greasy as he is, even he was just like, yeah, you lost. And then they were telling him to kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say ego stroking, but the way that they were telling him to me, and I know this is a hard thing to compare it to, but if you experience like a death in your family and
yeah.
somebody was coming to break that news to you, they wouldn't just like tell you. They would sit
Motherfucker's
you
dead.
down.
You
Yeah,
don't say that.
yeah. They would sit you down. They would tell you with care. They would hold your hand and they would try to see you through that process as a real friend or family member would do. But this is how they were treating Trump when it came to the election. And he was just kind of like, yeah, I know that you're telling me that. I understand what you're saying. I know that I lost. You're fired. Get away from me. Anybody who was telling him the truth, who were giving him actually like evidence that this is not happening. He fired them, he pushed them away, he got rid of them, and he only surrounded himself with people who would go along with the lie. And it's not like the people were believing him and they was just riding with their homie. They knew it was a lie and they were willing to go along with it. So that's how they came into like conspiring with him, is because they knew. So it's not like if Trump told me that, or some of his supporters, they really do think the election was stolen from him. So
Yeah,
if they were like trying to help him, that's one thing because they really believed it. They knew better. And
yeah.
they were just like, hey, yeah, let's just go along with it. No sense of duty. for America, for the American people, for democracy. They did not care about none of that. It was just kind of like, I could have power and money and I could just do whatever the heck I want to. So we can burn the whole place down if we want to.
I want
To
you.
me, that is more sad than it is angering.
I want you to ask your daughter about this because she's more educated about this. But I have a theory as to why what happens with all the people around him and Donald Trump. And I've said this many times before. When you're a young kid and you have a narcissistic father or mother who tends to go off the deep end, yell and scream, you want to avoid that all you can. So you do whatever you have to do to keep daddy happy, keep him from losing his shit. And I think the same thing applies to Donald Trump. He has the ability to go off the deep end, yell and scream and fire people. So these people were already bullied and they were afraid to push back. So instead, they couched everything they did. Don't tell him that. Let's tell him this so he doesn't think it's as bad. And that's what they did all along. So Donald Trump was ill informed because he couldn't gather the information himself. All the people around him kept trying to keep him happy,
Yeah.
and that's why we end up where we are now. All of a sudden Donald Trump can't be kept happy anymore because he's getting slammed in the face with fucking reality.
Yeah, it's kind of like people really don't realize that we've like been in an abusive relationship with this man for like
No question.
dang near 10 years at this point, right? And anytime that you're leaving an abusive relationship, the most dangerous part is when you're leaving.
Right.
And so with Trump being on his way out the door, and they knew he was, I'm pretty sure he was at his most dangerous at that moment. And then you have to think about the people he was surrounding himself with: Michael Flynn, Steve Bannon. You had Enrique Torres going to the White House. You have these people around him who you know are dangerous people.
Right.
And we got a small glimpse of it when the House was looking for their second speaker, the death threats that their wives were getting, threatening to assault women and children. Like they were literally doing this to these people, and all they were doing was just trying to be Speaker of the House. So imagine when it comes to Trump staying in power, how dangerous and threatening these people were. There's no excuse for it because when you are an adult and you take an oath, there's nothing that stops you from leaking something to the press, leaking things online if you're too cowardice to bring your face on there. I think when this was happening and people were like sounding the alarm, they were just like, and Chris Christie was the king of this. Let him file his lawsuits, let him get it all out of his system, let him have his day in court, he'll be done and he'll move on. That's how they excused his behavior when
Right.
they knew that that was not going to happen. So
Right.
I'm not giving them a pass on it, but I do understand that for them in that moment, the threat was real. The
Well,
threat was real.
well, and they're all going to live to regret what they did and how they behave and how they reacted to this. They're going to say, holy fuck, we shouldn't have done this. We should have shut it down because a lot of them may be implicated and go to jail themselves for
Yeah.
stupid reasons just because they didn't stand up for the for the truth. Donald,
You know how they go and they have like all these little secret meetings with him?
yeah,
I have no doubt in my mind that if just one of those people, like just one, would have said, we need to get together and we need to discuss this outside of Trump's presence. And they all would have sat down and said, this is what it is. This is what he's doing. And we can't let that happen. How do we deal with that? It could have been as simple as, yeah, he's dangerous. Let's 25th Amendment him. Yeah, he's dangerous. Let's hold a press conference. Yeah, he's dangerous. Let's do this, this, and this. There's strength in numbers. And the fact that they were all collectively cowards, like sniveling, weaselly little cowards, to me, that's the point that I don't get. Because not one single person in that room could have stepped up and just been a leader. That was Mike Pence's job, but
yeah.
Mother probably would have had a fit about that. But everybody else, like not one single person was willing to stand up and do the right thing. It was almost kind of like a mob mentality that they all agreed to just go along with it, thinking that if Trump could just get it out of his system, once all of his court cases are denied, he's going to be fine. Even though we saw him ramping it up and up and up, they knew they knew how dangerous he was and felt no duty to the American people at all. I don't think
Well,
any of those people belong in Congress
and
at
that
all.
and that's why it was very much like organized crime. Donald Trump
Mhm.
was the Godfather, the Don, and whatever he said goes. It didn't make a difference whether it was true or false or real or a good idea or a bad idea. He had autocratic control over this group, this
Mhm.
Republican Party, and it kind of trickled down the line. The people around him stood by him strongly, and the people on the outer circle were too afraid to go up against that. And so
Yeah,
he co-opted the entire party, and he destroyed the Republican Party. I don't care what anybody says, no matter what happens, the Republican Party will not come back after the November election in this form again. MAGA has
I,
proven to be a failure, and they're going to have to come up with something different.
I was reading that part, and there's a section there about Ronna McDaniel and what he was wanting her to do. And instead of her saying, no, that's not right, she was saying, like, well, no, I can't do that because, as chair of the RNC, it could be seen as political or whatever the crap excuse that she made. She used her position at the RNC to justify not going along with that instead of just saying, yeah, this is wrong. I'm not participating in that. But she didn't even take it a step further and like sound the alarm to what was going on behind the scenes. And the things like she didn't go along with it, but she didn't say nothing against them either. But the thanks that she got, but she lost her job to one of his bratty kids' wife. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So there
yeah,
was it if you went along with like damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So you might as well do the right thing and speak up. And none of them was able to do that. I kind of like how do they sit when they have no spines?
right,
But even like now, they refuse to tell the truth to this day.
well,
There's like, oh well, and he didn't try to overturn the election, or yeah, he tried it, but it didn't work, so it shouldn't count. Like
right.
that's the excuse that they're using now. Like, yeah, he tried to overturn the government, but Joe Biden is president, it didn't work, so what's the big deal? The big deal is we can see him doing the same thing right now today that he did in 2020. And the reason that he's doing it today is because you allowed him to get away with it in 2020.
Well,
So
and
if you don't hold people accountable, this is what happens.
if the fact that he was unsuccessful in doing it makes him not culpable,
Hmm.
then we should release the guy who took a shot at him and didn't succeed in killing him. Yeah, he took a shot at him, but he missed, so he's good. Let him go. That's what
Yeah.
we should do.
Well, that
The
only applies to their logic when it benefits them,
right,
like a lot of
exactly.
things.
All things with the law, when it benefits them, fine. If not, then we should crack down on everybody. You know, it's interesting that your daughter would say, I kind of understand the whole narcissistic thing. I've got no education in it other than 30 years experience with a malignant narcissist. And you learn kind of some of the things about this. Had I been in the situation working for the Trump organization, the moment I saw them go over that peak and heading downward, I'd say, nope, I'm out of here because I know where
Yeah,
this is going to go. It's going to crash and I'm going to be in the wreckage.
yeah,
What's interesting is that what Donald Trump does is apparently like a virus because they all caught it. Instead, when they know they're wrong and they know it's going downhill, like you say, they just double down, which is
yeah,
suicidal. It's like getting in a kamikaze plane and knowing you're going to die, but they still do it.
right. I don't know. I know that the threat was real. I know that.
Yeah.
But that threat does not explain all of their actions. So the threat in the moment, I get it, but after the fact, he's not in the White House anymore. Why are you still telling these lies? He's
Yeah.
not picking candidates that can win. Why are you still telling these lies? He's not helping your political career. As a matter of fact, sometimes somebody attached themselves to him. It doesn't go well. So why are you still going along with this? And why are you still telling these lies? So the fact that you were scared in 2020, it doesn't excuse the fact that in 2021, 2022, 2023, and in 2024, you're still not speaking out against him. You're still telling these same lies. You're still dancing around the fact that he lost the election. You're still doing it. That's the part. And I don't believe that all of these people were in the cult, especially the members of Congress because they knew better. They saw the evidence that we didn't even get to see. So they know that it's a lie. So the
Right.
fact that they were scared then, it has absolutely nothing to do with their behavior and their actions and their words today. Just to watch that they just do not care about the people of this country, in particular their base, because their base kind of ride hard for them. Like
Yeah.
they give their last dollar to a billionaire and don't blink twice about that.
Yeah.
The,
I look at Donald Trump, and I've said this before. I look at Donald Trump as a crazy ex, you know? And crazy
Mhm.
exes are dangerous because they know a lot about you and they're mad at you and they're no longer with you. You don't
Yeah,
know what they're going to do. So sometimes people stay as close as they can to these people just so this person doesn't spew whatever secret you might have. But once he was lost the race and he was no longer in the White House, that's when that's when a good ex worried about a bad ex should be looking for a new girlfriend for the bad ex to get him off your shit, to take the attention away. When they pulled him back into the fold, that was the biggest mistake anybody ever made. And you can like Kevin McCarthy or hate Kevin McCarthy. That was the dumbest thing he ever did. The moment he pulled Donald Trump back in, that was the demise of the Republican Party.
not just Kevin McCarthy, but the turtle
Lindsay,
himself,
yeah, Mitch,
because he voted against convicting him,
right,
and then he turned around within that same night and said, yeah, we didn't vote to convict him, but Trump is responsible for all of this. He's guilty. He did it. We're not going to hold him accountable. We're going to let the Justice Department do that.
yeah,
And that's why when you put the fate of someone like that, you don't leave that up to somebody else to do. You need to handle that yourself. Because as you can see, Merrick Garland was in no rush to hold him accountable
no,
at all. And it's kind of like if you would have held him accountable then, regardless of what Merrick Garland did or didn't do, how slow he was, how he didn't move when he was supposed to, that would be irrelevant. Because right now, today, he would not be your headache.
right,
I think the reason that he is their headache is because they were so cowardice. They didn't, I don't know if they just maybe, I don't know what mirror these people were using, but they kind of just wanted to keep this image of themselves that they think that they have to
right,
where they're a certain type of party. They're just these God-fearing, forgiving people and all of this crap. They wanted that image to still be there. So maybe they didn't want to convict him and leave another stain on the Republican Party. That's the only way that I could explain it, but it didn't work. And I always tell people, like when I'm canvassing, if you don't know who Donald Trump is, the best way to find out is all of those people that surrounding him today. See what they said about him in 2015. See what they were saying about him when he first entered the race, and that should tell you everything that you need to know. Because
yeah,
every single one of these people, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, all of these people said who he was. They said it directly. They didn't shy away from it. They called him out. They did that. So they know who he is. It's just that, they're greedy and they like the power and the control that they have over people's lives. But if you don't know who Donald Trump is, look at all his little buddies, rewind that tape to 2015 and hear what they were saying. And that's pretty much all you need to know.
So now that they've unsealed this briefing, a lot of people
Yeah.
are supposing that
Uh,
this is
we
the
still
October
it's
surprise.
there's still more of the briefing that's supposed to come out as
Really?
well. Yeah, so we haven't even gotten all of it yet. This is just the first half, and that second half, I'll have to check and see when the second half, but there's still another half of the briefing that's supposed to come out as well.
Well, you sent me a link to the briefing, and I don't know how many pages were in that one. Um, how much of that did you read?
I got like halfway through it.
Wow.
It slowed me down.
Boy,
I'm trying to figure out who all the people was. It was like a puzzle. Like I'm trying to fit this person here, this person there. They were saying some of the craziest things to each other. It was just kind of like I can't remember which one of the people that it was. It was just kind of like, yeah, I'm not gonna like say that or promote that because this is bad. You know what? Crazy.
Right.
They knew the documents that they were getting was crazy. They knew it didn't make sense. You can't get documents from a psychic saying, "Yeah, I know that these votes were stolen," and sell it to the American people. They knew. They just went along with it. Either that or they didn't say anything. They just either went along with it or they didn't say nothing, which was crazy. And Trump was telling everybody. He was telling Ivanka. He was telling Jared. He was telling everybody. I don't care if I lost. I'm going to say that I won anyway. And Steve Bannon was right there with him.
That's
Trump, he said, comes election night, and they knew it. And Trump knew it too. Democrats, especially during the pandemic, they're all voting by mail. So on election night, it's going to look like Trump is winning, and he is going to go out there and he is going to say that he won, so it can look like all of a sudden all of these ballots came in. They knew that. They
right.
knew that. It's in the documents that they knew that. And that was the plan. It's going to be read towards the end of the night. I'm going to go out there and declare victory. And when it comes out that I didn't win, then we're going to spin it. And this is how we're going to spin it.
The
They,
thing the thing is people around him knew that. I don't know that Donald Trump did. He's not that smart. When he saw that he was in the lead at night, they said, "Go
read the
ahead, take your bow,
document,
take your bow." Does
read it. He knew,
he
read it.
know?
He knew,
It
he
was
knew.
just
Yeah,
all
he was telling them.
calculated.
Yeah, he knew. Yep, he knew the whole time. And
Wow.
him and Bannon had a conversation where this was the plan. This is what he was going to do. Steve Bannon is on audio saying Trump is going to do some wild shit. He actually is on. Trump knew the whole time. He told Ivanka and he told Jared, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to say that I won anyway. So he knew exactly what it is that he was saying. He knew what he was. Now I don't know if he know that now because his brain is a little mushy, but he definitely knew.
Now, the important thing about this, people are asking me, why are you so excited about this brief being unsealed? Because we're still not going to have a trial till after the election, which is true. I'm not worried about the trial. I'm
Mm-hmm.
worried about a lot of bad shit coming out about Donald Trump before the election. I'm at a point now where I know Kamala Harris is going to win. What I really want now is a devastating landslide to put a mandate on this for by
Yeah,
the American people against Donald Trump, against MAGA, against the Republicans. That's the way we'll all get some closure to it. And that's the way they'll have to decide to come back with something different.
yeah. I think people are underestimating that for this, the only people that this does not matter to is MAGA.
Right.
Independents, undecided voters. When you look at like those exit polls and you know how they have those little round tables to hear what the undecided voters think, the number one thing that they were upset with JD about was him not acknowledging the fact that Trump lost the election. It
Right.
rubs them the wrong way. They feel like Trump was trying to steal their votes, which he was. They can't trust him. He's a liar. They know he's not going to hold Trump accountable. So the only people that this does not matter to is MAGA. So it's going to impact everybody else outside of that bubble who they're they're reading this and they're just as shocked as I think that I'm not shocked because we knew this, but just to read it. And then, you know, you always have that question with like, well, did Trump know? Was he delusional? Like this squashes all of that. Like you know that he knew.
Well, and
So I do
it
I
takes
do think that takes away from it.
it takes a lot of people who want to live in the gray area, like Mitt
Yeah,
Romney or somebody like that, going, "Well, we don't know, and I'm just doing this and I'm doing that." You can't do that anymore because the facts are there and they are on videotape and audio tape and in documentation from the people that were around Donald Trump. You can't say we don't know now. The interesting
yeah.
thing is, are we going to see them step up, the likes of Mitt Romney or some of these other people that aren't willing to really speak against Donald Trump? They're just trying to play the party line. Are they going to be forced now to actually step up and say, "Yeah, that's too far," even though they knew about it beforehand?
I don't think so, especially
Really?
with Romney. And the reason I don't think so when it comes to Romney is last week he did an interview in the Atlantic and he said, and he was, if Trump wins this election, that he would have to flee America and go to another country, like, you know, making plans about, you know, what he would do because he knows that he is on like Trump's enemy list. And he knows for a fact that Trump will come after him and his family and his 25 grandchildren. He said this in the article. And then when they asked him, okay, so you're going to vote for Harris and endorse Harris? He said no. He started rambling about her policies that he didn't like.
But
So
here,
you have Trump, who you know is a threat to yourself, your family, your safety, your security, and 25 grandchildren.
right.
You know that. And you're still sitting here like, yeah, well, but her tax policy. Now, if he would go into the booth and vote for her quietly, it's possible. But for him to publicly acknowledge the fact that Trump is more dangerous than Kamala Harris, he's not going to do that, even though he knows that his life is threatened. Now, he's not going to flee the country if Kamala Harris wins. He's going to
No.
be cool. He's going to be chilling. But he is going to flee if Donald Trump wins. And they referenced Michael Cohen because Michael Cohen said the same thing. And Michael Cohen actually said, yeah, Rob, he's smart to be afraid. He's smart to want to leave because he is going to come after us and he is not going to hold back, period.
You know,
So the fact that he knows that and he still won't say, yeah, I'm voting for Harris because this is what he could say if he didn't want to this is an excuse that he could use to vote for Harris. I don't like her policies. I don't agree with her, but I'm going to vote for her to keep my family safe. How hard is it to say that?
That's what Liz Cheney said.
Yeah.
And here's why I don't have no sympathy for people like Mitt Romney, because they stood with Donald Trump, even though they knew then what we all know now. So you deserve what you fucking get. Donald Trump, thankfully, will not be elected to the presidency, so you will be safe. But it's by no doing on your part. You put us in that situation. So fuck you. If you're at risk now, you deserve it. And I'm sorry to say that. There's one name that isn't stipulated on the document that I know of, but is on the list.
Yeah.
And that is Mark Meadows, the chief of staff for
Ooh.
Donald Trump. He is on the list, and we know he's on the list because he flipped on Donald Trump. His evidence is very important because he was right next to Donald Trump the whole time. He was the man in between those people communicating with him. He was passing the information on. He flipped to tell on Donald Trump so he didn't have to go to jail. We know there's a lot of shit in that document from Mark Meadows, and every bit of it is fucking damning.
Mark Meadows needs to have some of the best security that we got.
Yeah.
Because he is a huge piece of this puzzle. He knows where the bodies is buried without blinking an eye. He could probably draw you a map and tell you where everything is. That's somebody who is very, very involved in this and is a cooperating witness.
Right.
So I think that if Trump or MAGA could get their hands on him, it'll be Jimmy Hoffa. And he gonna be gone in the wind somewhere. We're not gonna have any idea. Mark Meadows is definitely deep, deep, deep in this, like knee deep, well, probably neck deep in this, which is insane, crazy. The thing that got Trump caught up is he's not smart, but he delegated his dirty work to so many people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like most people would have like a right hand and you have that person doing all your dirt. If that person delegates to whoever, then that's on them, but you're not in the mix yourself. He delegated to Sidney Powell. He delegated to Rudy Giuliani. He delegated to all of these different people. And that is a part of what's bringing him down. And none of these people have loyalty to him, which they shouldn't because he's not loyal to them either. But that's a big part of bringing him down. He had so many people involved in this. 77 people
based
in
on
Congress.
Based on what you read, what you know up to now, we're going to hear a lot about this over the next few days, and we'll get a lot of clarifications and a lot of things will be figured out by then. So we'll be waiting to hear about that. Do you think Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, maybe even Don Jr., you think they can be implicated in this stuff and actually get an indictment from what you've read so far?
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't get indicted because they were cooperating. I wouldn't be surprised at that at all. Because some of these things, like what he said around Ivanka, what he said around Jared, it's like, is that first or secondhand information, or is these things that they've said? And the reason I don't put it past them is because when you watch the Jan 6 hearings, Ivanka was actually saying, like, hey, Bill Barr told me this, and I trusted Bill Barr. And I told my dad that he didn't win the election. She said it on tape during the January 6 hearings.
Right,
So
right.
imagine what she's saying behind closed doors. Ivanka doesn't have any loyalty or fealty to her father at all. I do think it becomes a little sensitive subject when she sees that her brothers are involved in it. And that's what kind of makes her hold back a little bit. But if it was just Trump himself, I think that she would probably throw him under the bus, run him over, and then back up.
Well,
There's a side of Trump that she sees that the world hasn't been exposed to. And I could just say these victims of Trump's that's coming out, I do think she's seen a side of him that as a daughter she should not have seen.
well, and we know that she was in the room when he was talking to Pence and
Yeah,
threatening Pence and calling him names and all that stuff. So she is obviously connected to all this stuff. Now, one of the reasons this superseding indictment came out is because of um, the immunity thing put down by the Supreme Courts. And what Jack Smith was trying to do was trying to show how there might be some official things, but these aren't official. They'd like to say that any conversation between the president and vice president is official. It can't be touched. So Mike Pence's testimony doesn't mean anything. But what Jack Smith says in this document is saying, listen, not every conversation is necessarily official. When
right.
Donald Trump and Pence were talking, they were talking as candidates. They were talking as in a personal sense. Mike
Very smart.
Pence's Mike Pence's personal. So just because they have those positions doesn't make what they were saying as official. Now, here, and people will say, well, just go back to the Supreme Court and they'll shut it down. I'm not so sure about that because if the Democrats win the presidency, the House, and the Senate, you're going to see the Supreme Court behave a little differently than they have the last eight
Oh yeah,
years. They're going to
yeah,
back off down because they know that the Democrats have the power to fuck up their life.
yeah. And I do think that it's so smart of Jack Smith to separate candidate Trump from President Trump.
Right.
And that the way that he dissected conversations, the way he was able to take conversations that were overheard. So, if you're overhearing conversations or you're overhearing what people are saying, that's not a part of any type of official duties that you may or may not have. It's just the way that he separated those two from president and candidate. To me, that was smart. It's probably not, I probably would have been wrecking my brain for months. Like, how do I see what was official and what wasn't? But the way he
Yeah.
was able to say, oh, yeah, when you're a candidate, you're not a president. So that doesn't count. So that he's able to keep Mike Pence there, Mark Meadows there, Alan Dershowitz there. Like he was able to keep all of those people still within the mix. Very smart thing to do. This man is very smart. It's kind of like reading, I don't know, I don't want to say James Bond, but like a crime novel or something. When
Well,
you're
well,
reading a document, it's like, what? These people are so sloppy and stupid. And it could be funny, but it's so dangerously silly. Just for these people to be this careless. Well, I don't want to say careless. I think they was just cocky. They didn't think they would get caught. They thought they were untouchable. I know some of them possibly was like Matt Gaetz and leaning into the fact that they could get a pardon. Um, I wonder how they felt after they did all of this and Trump left and didn't pardon them at all.
what Donald Trump would like to have happen is that while he was president, anything he said or did was immune because he happened to be the president.
Yeah,
Now that would be like saying that everything I ever say is tied to me being a TikTok guy or a podcast guy. I can say this for sure, even in the situation with you and me. What we talk about in the podcast goes a certain way and we talk about certain things. But before the
mhm,
podcast and after the podcast, you and I talk, that
yeah,
isn't podcast talk. I'm not
yeah,
talking to you as a podcaster. I'm talking to you as an acquaintance, a friend, or something like that. And there
yeah.
is that distinction. And I think that's what Jack Smith is trying to make.
Yeah, we all do it. Like I have a group chat with my coworkers.
Yeah.
Because some of them are like nomads, some of them are like me, they're like travel around and stuff. Because we work remotely, but we have some like nomadic and in our group chat, it's like, hey, what country are you working from today or whatever. And that has absolutely nothing to do with work, nothing at all. So for him to sit there and say that every conversation with Mike Pence or with anytime somebody has dirt on him, oh, that was an official duty. No, it really wasn't. Committing crimes does not go under the job title of President of the United States. And that's how he wants it to be perceived, which is anybody like that should not be anywhere near the
Well,
White House, let alone run it.
if you're a cop in any city in America and you're off duty and you're in a bar and you get
Mhm.
drunk and you get in an argument and you shoot this other person, you don't get qualified immunity for that. You're a criminal. You're a murderer at that point. Just because you happen to be a cop doesn't mean you're under the cop guise all the time, 24/7. But that's what Donald Trump is hoping for. That's what he's claiming. And he's just not going to get it.
He's not going to get away with it. He's not. It's the one thing that Jack Smith is doing is he is exposing it. Because so what'll happen at this point is if it does go back to the Supreme Court, regardless of who's in charge, but especially if Harris is in charge, it's been exposed to the public at this point. Like the intimate details of what happened, the play by play of what went down is out there for the public to see for themselves. And so you sitting on the Supreme Court, you got like 300 and something million people who know what's going on, who's read this document. And for you to sit there and say, you know what, nah, this one person, we're going to make an exception for him. Do you know how crazy and chaotic America would become at that point? As
Yeah, absolutely.
unpopular and despised as Trump is, what that's going to do to the American people. Um, I don't think they would be in a position to have his back like that. I was actually talking to the wild child and her friends, and I was just kind of, just they was talking about the whole Civil War thing. And the wild child said something that I had never thought about before. She was like, Civil War, if Trump loses or whatever, that's not going to happen. She said, I think at this point, the one thing that can start a civil war in this country is if something happened to Kamala Harris. She
I
was just
agree.
kind of like, if you think that the right is crazy, let something happen to Kamala and watch how the left flips the F out, which I'm working with her on her language. But when she said that, I said,
Don't
that
have her
is so,
listen to this show.
when I said that, I mean, when she said that, I thought to myself, that is so true.
I agree
That is
with her.
so true.
I've,
I
I've,
had
s-
never thought about that.
I've said that before. I said everybody's worried about Donald Trump losing and the Republicans rising up and fighting, but they don't have any power, so that's not going to happen. But people
Mhm.
on the left, I talk to every day, all day, they are absolutely terrified that Donald Trump could be president. And if that happened, just became president, not even anything happening to Kamala, that's going to cause people to be even more upset, scared, and angry. And there could be violence on the left side because they've been told, and it's probably true, this is the end of your country. This is the end of democracy. Your life is going to suck after that. And when you do that to people, they're going to fucking fight.
Yeah. And for Kamala to be like that hope and that bridge to keep our democracy going. And as beloved as she is, I mean, like everywhere, for like MAGA or a Republic or somebody to do something to her, like it would be like it would be lighting a bomb on this country that I don't think anybody would be prepared for that. But when she said that, I was just kind of like, I never thought about it like that.
She's
But
absolutely right. That's very insightful, and she's absolutely right about that. What do you think? Now, over the next couple of weeks, more and more stuff is going to come out about this. We're going to become clear about who they're talking about, who's involved. How much impact do you think that has on the election in November?
I think it's going to have a huge impact, mainly though on the down ballot races, because I do think that some people might have split the ticket, or I do think that some people are like, well, I'm a Republican, but Trump isn't a Republican, so it gives them permission to vote for Harris. However, they still want to keep their, local government Republican or whatever their excuses is that they would make for that. But in this situation, it shines the light that can none of them be trusted.
Right.
You
So
know,
so
like
what so what you're saying is obviously implicates Donald Trump and the people around him, but the way it went down, it implicates all Republicans at this point.
yeah. hmm
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
think they're going to
agree.
see that you can't trust Republicans. Something that I've been saying is that in Project 2025, when it says even if Trump doesn't win, this is our blueprint for the next Republican president. And so you have to put that out there. Like these people cannot be trusted. These people are MAGA wearing a suit. You know what I mean? So you have to stress that to them that it doesn't matter who it is. This is the Republican Party's plan. Anytime somebody asks them, well, what's your plan for healthcare? What's your plan for this? What's your plan for that? Pull out Project 2025. It's in there. That's their plan. They don't want to tell you what their policies are and allow for you to decide for yourself if you're with that or not. They want to tell you what it is
Yeah.
that they
Oh,
want
it's
you to
going to
do.
be
They want to
good.
lie.
It's
Yeah,
we've
and
got
I
a concept of a plan. Yeah. They're going to tell us
yeah,
something.
they can't be trusted. And I do think that all of them have the stench of Trump on them, whether they want to or not. I do think the cowardice part of play a lot in it too, for the simple fact they didn't have any duty for this country. They just rolled along with it when they knew he was lying. I think this is going to hurt them more than they realize. MAGA is the only people that saying it's not a big deal. I was moderating a chat earlier, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, this! Oh my God, that!" The chat was like back and forth, and then you would just see MAGA in there. I was like, "That's not a big deal. That was 4 years ago. People need to let that go." They rationalize in their minds. I they could rationalize absolutely anything Trump does and says in their minds. Like it's not like they bend over for him. Like they literally like snap themselves in half for him, which is it's a cult, but it's sad and kind of hard to watch at the same time.
It is. It's kind of a sickness. We're going to wrap things up, but what's next for you? I know you're always bouncing around. You're going to be doing a lot of shit between now and the election.
So I'm
Where are you
keeping
headed
kind of
off to
like
now?
I'm keeping my ear to the ground. I was hearing so with some of the volunteers that's like in my group chat what we did the last time was because they do have like host homes. So there's like people that kind of like me, but they like if you come from one state, you want to go to Pennsylvania, like, hey, you can just crash at my house while you're canvassing and doing that stuff. But what we did was just like, hey, let's just get an Airbnb. Everybody paid like $150 for a couple of weeks. We got this really big, cool house, and we could just chill in it. That was fun. But we've been focusing on Tester now, but I haven't gotten any information if he needs any more help. I don't know if you saw the debate that he just did, but
Yeah, I
he
did.
crushed his opponent. So I'm still waiting on word for that. Also, with the hurricane, I have my ears with the owners of Planet Fitness. Like if these women's shelters need any help down there, call me and that's where I could go because I would always want to help out in that situation.
I,
Um, I know you saw what Trump did, which was like that kind of broke my heart.
what's that?
Because when you think about the women and the children who escape abusive relationships, and they've had this hurricane come, the shelter is gone, they're kind of like trying to hold on for hope so that they can get to a safe place. But when you hear Trump say something like, the government, they can't reach the Biden administration, that they're not answering their phone, they're not sending supplies, they're not helping, it could drive a woman, especially when she's that vulnerable, back into an abusive situation because she doesn't feel like help is coming.
Right.
And he didn't even think about that when he said it, but that was the first thing that I thought about. But I was really happy to see that people, even Fox News was like pushing back on that and saying that it's not true. Kim had just spoken with Trump. I'm not Trump, but Biden. He's been in constant contact with them. The only reason that they weren't there is because they didn't want to drain resources. For his little press conference, his audience was like firefighters and volunteers because he couldn't just stand out there and give a press conference to the cameras. He had to have an audience there. So
Yeah.
instead of these people like helping and doing what it is that they're supposed to do, they are sitting there watching Trump lie, taking away resources. closing down roadways and streets to where people needed to be reached. They needed to get to those people, but those roads are closed down because Trump wanted to be there. And then you can say, and then just for Trump to say Biden and Kamala isn't here, but I came.
Yeah.
Um, it's heartbreaking that he would do that. And I'm hoping, none of these women like went back into abusive relationships from misinformation. It's just, if I can go there and help, I'll be willing to go there and help. It's just,
The good news is that Donald Trump announced that he's starting a GoFundMe page for those poor people down in the hurricane situation. So, he'll bring in the money and give them $1 for every 100 that he gathers, like he did with Herschel Walker, and he'll grift some more money. So, if you want to send Donald Trump money, do that. But no, you're just supporting his legal problems.
he won't even give them $1. I can't remember the name of it, but there was an organization that always sends aid when, we have these natural disasters. And they came with their trucks and their supplies, and Trump took credit for that. So he didn't bring it, but he said that he did. So the money that these people were sending him, and it wasn't just GoFundMe. I think there was like 2 or 3 different fundraisers that he had going on. So he makes it look like, hey, look at all of these supplies that I brought, and he put all of his money in his pocket. But they don't realize that that was a completely different charity. Trump's name was not attached to it at all. He didn't give them any supplies. He just took credit for it so that you would think that he spent your money on these supplies, and then he put the money that you sent him in his back pocket,
Yeah.
which is wire fraud on so many different levels.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard anything about wire fraud when it comes to Trump. I hope he doesn't get away with that, stealing from needy families and people in the middle of this type of tragedy and loss.
I think we'll see some things
I
coming
can't wrap
down
my
after
brain
the
around it.
election. I think
I
we'll
can't
see
wrap my
some other
brain
stuff.
around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Old
Oh,
Soul,
I did have to say, I had to
yeah,
say this in person. So I wrote the figure down. So you remember when I was here last time and I was asking the audience to go to Jesse Dollamere and click on his fundraiser for the National Abortion Federation?
right.
So the final amount that we raised was $22,393. And it
Nice.
was crazy because we were under the limit. And then when we did the podcast, and I was telling everybody, because people do ask how to donate. And so it's like, hey, if you don't want to go to the website, just click on his video and it's like a fundraiser button, and then you can just donate whatever. And it's not a GoFundMe, it actually goes directly to our organization, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
I mean, I was like, oh my God. So that was like the final straw. And I had to look at it twice. I woke up, I checked the fundraiser because I knew I had said it the night before. And so I checked on it, like, I wonder if any of the Boomer Brigade donated. And we were over that limit.
Perfect. Well, I'm
And
not
so I was like, wait,
surprised.
what?
Got a good crowd of people listening to the Rational Boomer podcast, and I appreciate them immensely. So I'm glad they made the goal
Yeah,
and doing some good.
that's crazy. That is so crazy. I'm cheesing now. Like, that is so crazy because people just assume, like, when people come here, only thing they need is a plane ticket. I pick them up from the airport, feed them, house them, take care of them, take them back to the airport. That's what I do. But there are women who have to travel by themselves because we only pay for the woman that's coming here in need. Even if
Right.
it's like a young girl, if she's over 16, she can come.
Right.
But a lot of these women, they have to travel by themselves. So they're getting like an Uber, it pays for that. They have to eat, it pays for that. They have to have a hotel room, it pays for that. So it's like, it really does help these women that's in need. So, and even in some cases, what their insurance doesn't cover, it can like help them with that if they need to, a copay or a deductible or something that they have to meet first. It helps with all of that. So,
Oh, perfect. Well,
your
also,
listeners are awesome.
yeah, they are.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you coming back on. We missed you last week. Let's not do that again because I get the shakes, some twitches. It's just not good.
I'll
Um,
keep you posted on where I'm at, and if I got a signal, I'll do it.
okay. Okay. Absolutely. Well, I'll be in Savannah next Wednesday, so we may be
Oh,
doing it from both remote spots. But anyway, thank you very much for coming on the show again and imparting the knowledge that you have. Like always say, it's so much better when I can get somebody who knows more about shit than I do and make me look good. That's perfect. So thank you for doing that. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.